Right then, welcome to today's instalment of Noah's Ark. Right, so what I'm doing today is doing some preparation work for putting in a watertight bulkhead. This steel panel here is going to be a watertight bulkhead between the engine room, which is just through there, and the rest of the boat. The reason being, there's two below the waterline holes in the engine room. One for the raw water for the cooling system, and one where the propeller shaft goes through the hole, where there's a seal, stone gland seal. So if your boat's going to leak water, most likely it's going to be from one of those two places. I'd quite like to separate the engine room from the rest of the living compartment, so that it, gives it a much longer time before it goes down, which would be nice. Right, so the way the boat was originally made, it's riveted. So we've got rivets riveting the skin of the boat up to the gunnel, the original gunnel. They're nice big fat rivets. And then we've got millions and millions and millions of, let me get the light right, little rivets, little riveted seams like that. And they're everywhere. I will one day sort of work out how many rivets per foot there are, and work out how many rivets there are in this boat. When she was a lifeboat, she would have had 4 separate watertight compartments, which were separated by, sort of cut most of them out now. This is what's left of a watertight bulkhead, which would have gone right the way across the boat to the other side, where that's left of the old watertight bulkhead. But obviously, being as it's now liverboard, they were removed some point in the 1970s, along with all the bench seats for 100 poor miserable buggers to sit on, because they'd be at about chest height as it is now, and wouldn't make it particularly useful living space. So that's all gone. And what that left the boat was a sort of quite flimsy, wobbly, unstable structure, and it did survive sort of nearly 40 years like that. So not really that flimsy, and I know this boat did travel about quite a lot, so you can't really say that it's too weak. But our surveyor in his wisdom has said that the boat needs some framework inside to make it sort of like the more traditional style boats with ribs and things to give the boat some strength. So when we hit something, the load is spread out, and you don't get holes and you don't sink. So unfortunately, where this watertight bulkhead for the engine room that I want to put in it lines up exactly with where there was an old watertight bulkhead. And being as it's riveted, you end up with a million little holes like this. Now, I've undone the rivets with an air hammer, and that is where the old watertight bulkhead was. Now what I'm doing is, because I'm welding and not riveting, I probably should have learned to rivet rather than weld, but I'm going to cut out that section that's got hundreds of little rivet holes in it, and weld in a bit of 80mm by 5mm steel plate. So I've already done this side, and the pink stuff you see is dye penetrant to sort of show up any leaks, and so far so good. So what that will give me is a nice solid bit of 5mm plate to weld my bulkhead to, which can go all the way up to the top of the boat. And that's where I'm going. So yeah, I've done this side but yesterday and today. These square patches are where the old bench seats were riveted to the hull, and the people who originally, they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And the people who originally turned the boat from a lifeboat into a liverboard just cut them out and left the sort of brackets, as it were, for. I'll just get an example for you. Yeah, so that's kind of what was left there, and you can see the rivets, what's left of the rivets. And a big rusty hole, and this one's been overplated at some point in the past with a piece, and if I hold it up to the light, you can see that it's rusted through in a few spots. So, all of those have been cut out, and I haven't overplated, because overplating leaves you with a pocket that you can never paint, and you can never do anything with. And that, inevitably that pocket gets a bit of moisture inside it, and the rot begins. So everywhere where there's been a patch like this, I've cut out to a nice sort of reasonable size where the steel is at its full thickness. Cut a piece exactly to size and inset it. So I've totally substituted the rotten steel for some new steel. So this bit here fits there. There you go. So yeah, so that's what I've been up to. Yeah, and today's mission then basically is going to be over this side to cut that out and cut out that riveted seam. I've already knocked the rivets off, and weld in a bit of this, which is 80mm by 5mm thick. I think it's 5mm, it might be 6. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just basically going to tack it to the outside of the boat, bend it to the shape of the hull, tack it in place so it's sitting nice and flush against the hull, and then run an angle grinder with a 1mm cutting disc down the outside, which should give me a cutout panel that's exactly the same width as the flat bar I'm putting in. And it will also give me a nice 1mm gap, which lets me do a nice full penetration weld. So yeah, that's where we're at. Now, to get the 5mm plate, although in that sort of length is reasonably flexible, it's not that easy to bend. So the way I've got around it, I can untangle my wires. The way I've got around it is by cutting these little slots about halfway through, making it sort of 2mm thick at where the slot is, and that allows it to bend nice and easily to the shape of the hull. And then afterwards I can weld up the slots and it's back to full thickness again. So that's sort of how I'm getting the reasonably thick metal to comply. I've got another problem, which is where there's a riveted seam, there's a rubber gasket in between the two plates, which is a right pain in the arse, because when you weld anywhere near it, it melts. And obviously a melted rubber gasket doesn't seal very well. So it's a bit of a struggle. You've got to just sort of do a little spot and then stop and then do another little spot, and then, try and do it as cold as possible. And yeah, I've been finding it a bit tricky, but so far none of the riveted seams leak much. This dye penetrant stuff is supposed to penetrate within 10 minutes, and all the seams where we've crossed the rivets elsewhere, and there's one, there you go, there's one just there, that's the new metal plate crossing the riveted seam. It takes about 4 days for the dye penetrant to find its way through the rivet holes and through the seams. So I'm sort of thinking that, with a nice bit of epoxy paint and some sealant on the inside and sealant on the outside, there's some really good epoxy sealants you can get these days. That should keep the water out. I mean, I'm kind of thinking that, if a microscopic hole in a weld takes 10 minutes to show, if it's taking a few days for the penetrant to find its way through, then that's a very, 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 very microscopic hole. So I'm not overly concerned, I don't think. But obviously the day of reckoning will be when we put it in the water, and hopefully there's no leaks, but I'm sort of half prepared for that there might be, and we might end up coming straight back out of the water again and patching up a couple of little tiny microscopic holes, which I don't really want to do, but I'm sort of prepared for the idea of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at for today. Right over in the corner, and well bedding, job done.